Happy New Year, Internet. Happy Public Domain Day. Yeah, January 1st is the day that works enter into the public domain after being allowed to have a period of copyright. So anything created before 1978 gets 95 years from when it was published, or 120 years from when it was created. I guess whichever is longer. So anyway, that means every year we're going to start getting more and more stuff that was created basically in the 1920s. So last year we got Mickey Mouse and Steamboat Willie. People lost their minds about this. I was excited about it too, but the more you think about it, Mickey Mouse really is not that interesting of a character. Okay, I said it. Sure, he's a corporate icon, right? And but what are the great Mickey Mouse cartoons? What are the iconic Mickey cartoons? If we, besides Steamboat Willie, which I would put up there just for the technical achievement of it and the fact that it was like one of the first talkie cartoons and first appearance of Mickey. But what's the most iconic Mickey Mouse cartoon? I would say it is the Sorcerer's Apprentice from Fantasia. But what else? What else? You tell me, Internet. What is the iconic Mickey cartoon that I'm missing that's so great that we love? Like, you tell me Bugs Bunny, I'm going to tell you 20 different cartoons, starting with What's Opera, Doc, and whatever. I could name a ton of them that are just great. You'll remember iconic moments. Mickey Mouse is boring. He's a corporate shill more than he is anything else. Although I'll give some design cred to whatever Iwerks for creating such a recognizable character that is recognizable from the outline only. Great, okay. But besides that, what else? What were the other notable recent public domain entries? The most notable one I would say was Winnie the Pooh. I think the previous year to that went into the public domain. Now, just like Mickey, it's like the version that came out in that year is what entered the public domain. So like Steamboat Willie didn't even have the white gloves yet. I don't even think he talked in that cartoon, although there was music, now that I think about it. But either way, like, you can't use any aspect that wasn't in that cartoon. So it's kind of limited. And Winnie the Pooh, like, you can do Winnie the Pooh from the A.A. Milne book, but definitely can't have him in the red outfit as you've seen him in Disney, because that's a Disney copyright thing that still exists. So it's complicated. A lot of people stay away from these things, or they embrace it and go the other way. They did the Winnie the Pooh horror movie, which I didn't see. Did you? Anybody see that or like that? Put it in the comments if you did. And this year, though, we're getting two pretty major comics-related characters dumped into the public domain. Not dumped. Lovingly elevated, finally, into the public domain. One of them is Tintin from the cartoonist Hergé, I guess, first appeared in 1929. And there's a lot of early Tintin works before, probably in black and white, although I might be wrong. Tintin is another one of those characters where, if you're American, you might not even have read Tintin at all. Although it definitely has its adherents here. They're mostly like expatriates, people from either from Europe or a British colony, like India or something, that grew up reading these comics. And they're also into Asterix and those other Euro comics. But Tintin, they tried to do a Steven Spielberg movie, animated film of it, and just really kind of missed the mark, in my opinion, on the most important part of Tintin is the art style, right? Hergé is is best known for the clair ligne, or I think I pronounced that right, the clean line style of cartooning, which, you know, if you know Tintin, you know what I'm talking about. He's been super influential, especially on modern European guys like Just Swarte, one of my favorites, and many others. Like, there's no doubting there's an amazing visual look to Tintin, where sort of the line weights, the equal line weights given to everything, just produce a very striking, fun to read comic story. But they lost all that for the Steven Spielberg movie, right? They made it all 3D animated and sort of lost that classic artistic style, which is as important as anything else, if not the most important thing about Tintin. Okay. Hergé aside, who else entered the public domain this year? Oh man, it's a big one. It's Popeye. I talked about it yesterday, or was it the day before? Whatever, either way. I talked about how important Popeye was to me growing up and to American culture, and like what happened to Popeye, and it's how the lack of violent fisticuffs in our cartoons now might not be doing the service to our children that we think it is. Okay, so let's see some new Popeye stuff. I heard there's an edgy Popeye film, I think, in the works, called something like Popeye the Murder Man or something silly like that. But no, Popeye the Slayer Man, not the Sailor. That's what it was, Popeye the Slayer Man. Okay, it's gonna be like Abe Lincoln Vampire Slayer or whatever, or the Winnie the Pooh horror movie I was talking about. Like, oh, let's take this beloved thing you remember and put it in a super edgy, like horrific context. That's interesting to me, but not as interesting as some other approaches might be. Really love Popeye. Really hope this leads to a renaissance in Popeye and brings him back. I remember a few years ago, you can search this on the internet, there was a Genndy Tartakovsky, you know, the guy from Dexter's Laboratory, and he wanted to do an animated Popeye movie, and he produced some test footage that really looked fun and cool. It was like modern animation styles, but really captured sort of the fun, Fleischery cartoons of the 1930s. Speaking of which, many of those are in public domain, as well as some of the later cartoons from the 50s of Popeye. Those cartoons went into the public domain. You want to seek them out. They're great. That old black and white stuff from the Fleischers. And I didn't realize this until very recently, that that's a lot of Popeye cartoons fell into the public domain accidentally because you used to have to file like periodic paperwork to keep your copyright, or it just lapsed into the public domain. And somebody at the Fleischers forgot to do that for the Superman cartoons that they made, which are among, if not the very best Superman animated cartoons ever produced. I mean, they might be the finest Superman films ever, and I wish more people watch them, and many have, and take a lot of visual input from those cartoons. They're amazing and amazingly influential. But the Fleischers also did crazy good Popeye cartoons. Man, that Popeye one where he goes to Sinbad, and there's the whole Sinbad the Sailor musical, is just a wonderful, wonderful cartoon to watch, and it's completely free and in the public domain. Like, anybody can show it or adapt it or whatever, and that's why it used to have so much play on local TV stations all around the country. I didn't realize this. They didn't have to pay, or they only had to pay for the print or whatever to have it. You could show it without paying any royalties, and kids ate them up because it's Popeye! What's not to love about Popeye, right? So, I talked about Popeye in the other video. Go watch that thing. What I really want to talk about too, I've talked about it a little bit before on my show, is one of my favorite public domain works, Gladiator by Philip Wiley. Now, this is the book that supposedly either Siegel or Schuster, I forget which one, read and drew inspiration for Superman from. And man, many people dispute it. I mean, it's not exactly Superman. There's no Krypton. There's no aliens in this. It's a different angle on that origin. But so many things from it are cribbed for Superman. And not just Superman. When I read it, I felt super strong Spider-Man vibes in it as well. They talk about proportional strength of insects, etc. So Gladiator is the story of Hugo Danner, born not on Krypton, but in Colorado. And as a result of chemical experimentations by his father, who was this sort of like meek college professor, chemistry professor, who had big theories on what you could do. And his mother was an ultra uptight, super religious, like harpy type woman who really really wore the pants in the family, so to speak, and used religious guilt to sort of deal with the crazy strength of their infant son. Really fascinating, really great look, really interesting, far more adult than the juvenile Superman that undoubtedly drew inspiration from it. I cannot recommend it enough. I mean, it follows Danner through his childhood Superboy years, including his own creation of a sort of a fortress of solitude. Definitely different. Like, you're going to read it and you're going to go, okay, a little bit of similarity. But when you remember that this came out before any other superheroes, the term superhero even existed, then you start to understand how influential this was and is. So Hugo goes on to college as a star athlete, and after, spoiler alert, accidentally killing a rival teammate during a football game, gets disillusioned, travels the world, goes to war, goes into high finance, enters politics, and gives you an incredible lens on what it is like to be an extraordinary person in a world full of very base, ordinary individuals. Some people think it's kind of got a downer ending. I won't spoil the ending, but it's weird. But in my mind, it makes for a great proto-Superman story. In my view, like Gladiator, Hugo went through what he went through and figured out at the end he could not exist in the real world because people would be too jealous of him. So just maybe he adopted a secret identity and became a reporter in a major metropolitan newspaper. That's my spin on it. This book has been adapted into comics. I forgot they gave it a new title, totally new title. And Howard Chaykin, of all guys, wrote it. And I think it was art by Glenn Fabry, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, they said it during the Vietnam War, and it was way different. Really good because Howard Chaykin is a great writer, but so different and lacks the sort of Depression era setting that I think makes this so powerful. It's one of the reasons why I really rooted for a new Superman movie to be like a Depression era period piece, set Superman back in the original era where he was actually created. And I think it would make for an amazing film. Take him, start with the idea that, that Superman, when he originally created, was far less powerful than the Superman we know today. But make that into canon, where it's because he's only absorbed so much solar radiation, and as he ages, he goes from, the guy who can, a bullet might tickle him or sting him or whatever, but a cannon could kill him, into the Superman, the godlike Superman who moves planets and is more powerful than whatever. I really like the idea of keeping him sort of aging slowly, but always getting more and more powerful. And then you get into that sort of gray temple, Crisis of Infinite Earths, elder Superman, who is really the most powerful of all. And you could even that gets extended. That became like the Kingdom Come, Alex Ross Superman, I guess. But I've always liked that idea, and then you build a DC universe around that, where Superman is the one constant. He's sort of like been around since the 20s and just aging slowly, and he's still Superman. Everyone's just known him as Superman for that entire time. I think there's something really cool and interesting about that, but it won't be done. At least not this go around. I'm sure if this Superman comic, if the Gunn Superman movie doesn't go as big, or heck, even if it does, we know Superman's not going anywhere. Although at a certain point, he too will enter the public domain, right? And if it's in 1929 right now, Popeye was 1929, and Superman, I believe, was 1939. So that means we've only got 10 short years before public domain Superman. Now, again, the Superman that was in Action Comics #1 was a far cry from the Superman that we know today. I mean, even things like kryptonite, dude, that wasn't a thing. I heard somewhere from an old friend, and I've never really confirmed this, but I heard that kryptonite was actually created in the Superman radio show, which came in the early 30s, very soon after the comic. Like, Superman was a hit right out of the gate. And so there was a ton of adaptation and work, like the Daily Planet, kryptonite, and I think even Perry White might have originated in the radio show and made their way back into the comics. Superman was always too big for just the comics. Superman is a concept that can fill any vessel you pour him into, if you will. So I can't wait for that. Countdown to 10 years from then. But in the meantime, I'm really toying with a Gladiator adaptation. Even if just for fun, I think it deserves to be adapted closer to its original form. I think Chaykin was trying to change it enough so he could keep his own copyright on the characters and the names and the settings and things like that. And so they didn't quite give it the approach that I think it deserves. So who knows? Maybe we'll see that. Probably not in 2025 for me, but it's possible. I have been working on comics, and but I'm always working on something. That's part of what I do over at Dan Shaheen Consulting. So go check out danshaheen.com. If you got a business in the cloud or elsewhere and you need some help, give me a call. Let's see what we can do. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year. Happy Public Domain Day. Go check out some public domain Popeye cartoons as a tribute to the fact that this great American character has finally entered back into the public domain and belongs to all of us. And maybe go read some Tintin too. See ya.